In the pale light of a rainy Thursday morning, as I sat alone with my steaming cup of coffee and the hum of the city awakening outside my window, a single, perplexing detail shattered the comfortable rhythm of my life. I had discovered a gym membership charge on our bank statement, one that my wife, Melissa, had never mentioned, never used. Those first 100 words struck me like a lightning bolt, a mysterious fee for a gym I never knew she belonged to, a facility whose existence was as alien as the idea of our perfect life being less than it appeared. This small, unexpected charge became the spark that ignited a torrent of questions, doubts, and the realization that the real workout wasn't happening at a fitness center, but in a hotel room far from home. I'd always trusted Melissa implicitly. For over 7 years, our marriage had been the cornerstone of my existence, a steady blend of shared routines, quiet laughter, and a deep, unspoken commitment to one another. Our lives were intertwined with small rituals, weekend breakfasts, evening walks around the neighborhood, and heartfelt conversations that stretched late into the night. Our friends admired the harmony we projected, and even our families believed our union was built on unwavering honesty. Yet, that gym membership charge, so incongruent with what I knew, sent ripples through the complacency I had allowed to settle between us. At first, I rationalized the expense. Perhaps it was a mistake on the bill, or maybe Melissa had signed up for a trial membership out of curiosity. I questioned myself, had I missed something? I prided myself on staying informed about our finances, every expense was discussed, every bill paid in full. And yet, this charge for a gym I had never heard her mention was entirely out of place. A gnawing sense of unease began to take root, a feeling that something was amiss beneath the veneer of our everyday life. I began by combing through our recent bank statements, highlighting every transaction that didn't fit our usual pattern. Sure enough, among the routine grocery bills and utility payments, there was that one line, a fee for a gym membership at Titan Fitness Center, a place I had never even passed on my daily commute. The charge was small, almost negligible, yet it carried with it a weight of implication that I couldn't dismiss. My mind swirled with questions. Why would Melissa sign up for a gym she never mentioned? Had she been keeping something secret? The more I thought about it, the more the details didn't add up. Melissa had always been moderately active, not the type to obsess over fitness trends or expensive memberships. If she had such a membership, why had she never used it? Determined to find answers, I decided to ask subtle questions over the following days. I would casually inquire about her schedule or her week's plans, hoping to catch a slip in her recollection of where she'd been. At first, she responded with nonchalant, rehearsed answers, always a vague, "Oh, I just had some free time," or "I was running errands." But with each passing day, a pattern emerged. Her responses were increasingly vague, and I noticed that she would sometimes glance away when I asked about her afternoon routines. Unable to shake the mounting suspicion, I began to pay closer attention to the little details. I noted that her phone, usually left carelessly on the kitchen counter, was now locked away in her handbag with an unusual amount of care. I also observed that she was leaving the house at odd times that didn't coincide with our usual shared activities. My heart sank each time I pieced together these small anomalies, each one a tiny fragment of a larger, hidden puzzle. One evening, when our home was silent except for the soft hum of the television, I decided to take a risk. I asked her casually, "Mel, I noticed a charge for Titan Fitness on our bank statement. Have you been going to a new gym?" Her reaction was immediate, a flash of discomfort, followed by a quick, evasive smile. "Oh, that? I signed up a few months ago, but I haven't really gone much," she replied, her tone light and dismissive. But her eyes, for just a fleeting second, betrayed a depth of emotion that made my blood run cold. That brief moment of vulnerability was enough to shatter the carefully constructed facade. My heart pounded as I realized that her dismissive answer could no longer hide the creeping suspicion that there was more to this gym membership than met the eye. Determined to find the truth, I began to quietly track her movements. I installed a subtle tracking app on her phone, rationalizing it as a way to keep our family safe, just a precaution in our busy lives. I told myself that if there were any discrepancies, the data would speak for itself. And as the hours turned into days, the tracking records began to reveal a disturbing pattern. The app's notifications showed that she was not going to the local gym at all, but was frequently logging locations near a downtown hotel, a place that I had never heard her mention or ever expected her to visit. At first, I thought it might be a mistake, an error in the system. But as I cross-referenced the dates and times with her excuses, it became alarmingly clear. She was regularly visiting that hotel, and her time there did not match up with any plausible gym routine. My mind raced with possibilities. Was she meeting someone? Had she been spending secret weekends away? The more I thought about it, the more the evidence pointed to a clandestine double life. Every notification from the tracking app was like a silent scream, each one confirming a deviation from the story she had told me. I spent nights alone in the dark, reviewing the app's logs, my heart pounding in sync with the relentless beeps of my phone. The truth was slowly piecing itself together, and it was far more complex and painful than I had ever dared to imagine. I began to compile every scrap of evidence into a digital dossier, a meticulous record of dates, locations, and screenshots of the tracking data. I printed out the records and spread them across my desk like a map leading to a hidden, forbidden world. Each piece of evidence was a stark reminder of the betrayal, a tangible fragment of a secret that I had never been allowed to see. With every line of data, my certainty grew, and the gnawing pain in my chest intensified. At the same time, I noticed a change in her behavior. Melissa started becoming unusually cautious with her phone, locking it with a password that she had never bothered with before and keeping it tucked away when I was around. She began leaving the house at times that made no sense, and when I asked, her explanations were always vague and hurried. The little signs, once dismissed as trivial, now screamed of a deception that had been carefully orchestrated. I was not just dealing with a forgotten gym membership, I was confronting the reality that the truth of our marriage was built on lies. That turning point came one chilly evening when, after a long day of quiet surveillance and anxious reflection, I noticed that the tracking app indicated she was headed toward that same downtown hotel. My heart pounded as I followed the route in my mind. I rationalized that I needed irrefutable proof, something that could not be dismissed as a mere error or misunderstanding. With the digital dossier now complete and my resolve steeled by the mounting evidence, I realized that the time to confront the hidden truth was imminent. Every fiber of my being screamed for an explanation, and I knew that a confrontation would not only expose her betrayal but also force me to face the devastating reality of a life built on a fragile illusion. The gym membership that had once seemed inconsequential was, in fact, the tip of a massive iceberg, a single clue that had led me to uncover a hidden world of deceit. My mind was set ablaze with the need for answers. My heart, though heavy with sorrow, beat with a fierce determination to reclaim my truth. Now, as I sit alone in the silent hours before dawn, the digital dossier spread out before me, I prepare myself for the confrontation that I know will come soon. I realize that the truth, however painful, is the only path forward. I can no longer hide behind the comforting lie of normalcy. The key to uncovering a hidden life was that gym membership, an innocuous charge that turned out to be the gateway to a secret that would irrevocably alter everything. With each new piece of evidence, the chasm between what I believed and the reality before me grew wider, until the time came to step into the light and face the devastating truth. In the hours after I left that hotel room, a numb mixture of disbelief and seething anger overwhelmed me. I drove home in silence, the images of that dimly lit room, and the intimate items strewn about, playing in an endless loop behind my eyes. Every detail of what I had seen gnawed at me, the half-made bed, the personal belongings out of place, the subtle signs of intimacy that had belonged not to a transient guest, but to a secret life. My mind was a turbulent sea of questions. Who was she meeting there? How long had this hidden routine been going on? And most agonizingly, how could I have been so oblivious? I spent the next few days meticulously combing through every piece of evidence I could gather. My phone's tracking logs, which had once merely raised a spark of suspicion, now painted a damning picture of regular trips to that same upscale hotel, a place I never knew my wife, Melissa, would ever need to visit. I printed out every location record, annotating dates and times in my journal with a cold precision that belied the burning pain inside me. Each entry was a stark reminder that her supposed gym membership was nothing compared to the secret life that unfolded in that hotel room. Every morning, I found myself lost in thought over our once ordinary routines. The memory of Melissa laughing over coffee, or the gentle way she brushed a stray lock of hair from my face, now clashed with the reality that she had been living a double life right under my nose. I began to replay our recent days in excruciating detail, searching for the subtle clues I had once ignored, the way she'd hurried to hide her phone, her vague explanations for late returns, and even the fleeting glances she'd cast out the window as if expecting to see someone in the shadows. The more evidence I uncovered, the more my inner world crumbled. I found receipts for dinner at upscale restaurants, dated for nights when she claimed to have been working late. I discovered email confirmations for reservations at places I'd never heard her mention, and even a text from a friend that casually congratulated her on a wonderful night out. It was all there, laid out in digital ink, a pattern of deceit that confirmed my worst fears. Each discovery was like a blow to my heart, a reminder that every lie she had told was a crack in the foundation of our shared life. Haunted by this overwhelming betrayal, I wrestled with a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. Rage burned through me like wildfire, yet deep down I felt a numbing sadness, a grief for the marriage I believed was built on trust, now reduced to a charred skeleton of secrets. In moments of solitude, I found myself questioning if I had done something to deserve this, if my own complacency had allowed her to slip away into another life. I turned to my journal as both a refuge and a weapon, pouring out my anger, my sorrow, and the stark reality of every discovery. Each word I wrote was a raw confession of the love I thought I had, and the betrayal that now defined it. As the days passed, I knew that simply gathering evidence was not enough. I needed to confront the betrayal head-on, to force the hidden truths into the light. I began to plan how to approach Melissa without shattering what remained of our fragile connection, if any connection remained at all. I envisioned a conversation where I wouldn't explode with fury, but where the cold, relentless facts would speak for themselves. I practiced my words in front of the mirror, rehearsing the difficult questions I needed answers for, while also trying to steel myself against the inevitable pain of her responses. Every time her phone buzzed unexpectedly, whether it was a notification or the soft ring of an incoming call, I felt my heart skip a beat. I watched her discreetly, noticing the way her eyes would momentarily glaze over before she hurriedly tucked the device away. These moments, so fleeting yet so potent, became the final proof that her lies were not isolated incidents but part of a broader pattern of deception. The tracking data confirmed that the hotel visits were not one-offs, they were a regular occurrence, each one meticulously logged and irrefutably real. Late one evening, as I sat in the quiet of our home with the evidence spread out before me on the kitchen table, I felt a crushing loneliness. The silence around me was oppressive, filled with the ghosts of a marriage that had once promised forever. I was alone with my thoughts and the relentless, painful truth. Every printed screenshot, every carefully annotated log entry, was a reminder that the perfect life I once believed in had been nothing more than a fragile illusion, shattered by a secret that was hidden in plain sight. I began to fear not only for our future but for the impact of this betrayal on our family. Our neighbors, our friends, people who had always admired the harmony of our relationship, would soon whisper about the cracks in our facade. I imagined family gatherings turned cold by unspoken judgments and sideways glances, and the thought filled me with a quiet dread. The personal pain was now inextricably linked to a public scandal I never wanted to be a part of, yet it loomed ever larger with every new piece of evidence I uncovered. In the midst of this emotional chaos, I reached out to a trusted friend, someone who had seen me at my best and worst before our lives took this dark turn. Over long, late-night phone calls, I poured out the story of my discovery, the gym membership charge, the tracking logs, and that haunting hotel room where I found more than I could have ever imagined. His voice was steady and his words were measured. You need to face this truth, even if it breaks you. Holding on to denial will only eat away at you until there's nothing left. His advice, simple yet profound, steeled my resolve further. I knew that the confrontation was inevitable, that I had to muster the courage to face Melissa with all the evidence I had collected. So I spent that week preparing for the confrontation. I organized my digital dossier with painstaking care, each screenshot and log entry arranged chronologically, each detail annotated with my raw, unfiltered thoughts. I rehearsed my questions repeatedly. Why did you lie about your whereabouts? How could you keep this hidden from me? I imagined her responses, her possible tears, her defensiveness, and I braced myself for the cascade of emotions that would follow. Every night, as I lay awake in our now silent home, I steeled myself with the thought that I deserved the truth, however painful, and that only by facing it could I hope to reclaim my own identity. At the same time, I couldn't help but dwell on the life we had shared, the small, intimate moments that now felt tainted by doubt. I remembered our quiet dinners, the soft exchanges of affection, and the promises we once made to be honest and open with each other. The realization that all of those moments had been built on a foundation of deception was a crushing blow. I began to wonder if I had been too complacent, too wrapped up in the comfort of routine to notice the subtle signs that had been there all along. The betrayal was not sudden, it had been a slow, creeping erosion of trust that I had chosen to ignore until it was too late. As I pieced together the timeline of her secret life, I felt a deep, pervasive sadness that seemed to seep into every corner of my being. The gym membership, which at first appeared to be a minor discrepancy, had been the spark that lit the fuse of a much larger deception. It was as if a hidden part of our marriage had been working out in secret, a secret that had built up over time and was now impossible to ignore. The realization was both infuriating and heartbreaking, a reminder that even the smallest detail could unravel an entire life built on trust. Every day, my determination grew, fueled by a mix of bitter anger and a desperate need for closure. I continued to review the data, reread the messages, and refined the digital dossier until it was as precise and unassailable as possible. I knew that when the time came to confront Melissa, I would need to present the evidence not as a weapon of vengeance, but as a stark, undeniable testament to the truth. I hoped that in doing so, I might find some semblance of understanding or, at the very least, force the revelation to set both of us free from the lies that had poisoned our lives. By the end of that turbulent week, I felt that the evidence had crystallized into a narrative I could no longer live with in silence. The digital dossier, with its cold, methodical record of every suspicious movement and every unguarded moment, was a mirror reflecting the painful reality of a marriage built on hidden truths. I knew that the next step was unavoidable. I had to confront Melissa, to ask the questions that had been burning in my heart, and to demand the honesty that I had long believed was the cornerstone of our union. As I prepared myself for that inevitable conversation, I felt a profound mixture of dread and resolve. I was standing on the precipice of a life-altering moment, one that would either lead to an irreparable rupture or force us both to confront the depths of our shared pain. My journey into the hidden world of deceit had taken me to the brink of despair, but it had also ignited within me a determination to reclaim my truth and rebuild my identity from the ruins of our shattered trust. Now, as I sit in the quiet solitude of our study, the soft glow of the desk lamp illuminating the pages of my meticulously compiled dossier, I know that the moment of confrontation is near. The truth, with all its painful clarity, is no longer something I can hide from. Every new piece of evidence, every subtle hint that I had once brushed aside, has converged into a reality that demands to be faced. And though my heart aches with the weight of betrayal, I am resolved to step forward, to confront the hidden life that has been living in the shadows of our marriage and to demand the answers that have haunted me for far too long. In the chill of an early morning that felt heavy with unspoken finality, I knew that the moment of no return had arrived. The images of that hotel room, the half-made bed, the scattered personal items, and the unmistakable evidence of a secret life, haunted me like relentless ghosts. Every detail of what I had seen that night burned itself into my memory, a brutal testament to a betrayal that had been hidden behind the facade of a gym membership I never knew existed. With my mind reeling and my heart shattered, I steeled myself for the confrontation that would forever alter the course of our lives. I arrived home with a numbness that belied the storm raging inside me. The house, once our sanctuary of shared laughter and whispered dreams, felt alien and oppressive. I sat in our living room in silence for hours, my eyes fixed on the digital dossier I had painstakingly compiled, a collection of tracking logs, transaction receipts, and snapshots of moments that revealed a hidden world I had never imagined. Each piece of evidence was a reminder of the life my wife, Melissa, had been living behind my back, a life of secret rendezvous and intimate moments in a hotel room far from home. The confrontation came on a rainy afternoon. I invited her to sit with me in our dining room, a place that had witnessed countless celebrations of love and togetherness, now transformed into the stage for our painful truth. The table was set as it had always been for a family dinner, but today it carried the weight of every lie and every betrayal. With the dossier spread out before us, I looked at her, my eyes searching for the warmth and honesty I once knew. "Melissa, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the avalanche of emotion threatening to overwhelm me. For a long moment, silence reigned. Her eyes, usually so full of gentle affection, darted around the room as if searching for an escape. Finally, her gaze met mine, and I saw in them the flicker of guilt and fear. I didn't know how to tell you," she murmured, her voice barely audible. The words, weak and tentative, fell like broken promises between us. I pressed on, my tone a blend of sorrow and restrained fury. "Then explain this, explain every moment you lied about. How long has this been going on? Why did you choose a hotel? Why hide it behind a gym membership I never knew you had?" Her defenses crumbled slowly. She began to stutter out explanations that were as incoherent as they were painful, talk of loneliness, of feeling unappreciated, of seeking a thrill in a life that had become too predictable. With each sentence, I felt the foundation of our marriage splinter further. The truth was a bitter pill. It was not just the fact of her infidelity, but the cold, calculated way she had compartmentalized our lives, presenting me with a perfect facade while living a double life behind closed doors. I remember the tears in her eyes, how they shimmered with regret and a deep-seated sorrow that echoed my own. Yet, even as she pleaded for forgiveness, I could not escape the overwhelming sense of loss. My mind raced through memories of shared moments that now felt tainted, the quiet mornings over coffee, the loving glances exchanged during family dinners, and the soft, trusting whispers that once bound us together. All had been built on a foundation that, I now realized, was riddled with secrets. The confrontation left our home shrouded in a silence so dense it nearly suffocated me. I retreated to my study, where I spent long hours rereading the dossier, trying to reconcile the woman I thought I knew with the reality laid bare before me. Every piece of evidence was a dagger to the heart, yet I knew that it was the only truth I had left. I began to write fervently in my journal, capturing every raw emotion, the betrayal, the anger, the crushing sorrow, and, amid it all, the slow, hesitant spark of determination that urged me to reclaim my life. Over the next few days, as the shock gradually gave way to a steady grief, I found myself wrestling with the question of what now. I realized that I had two choices: to let this betrayal define me completely, to allow the pain to fester into a bitter, unending cycle of anger and regret, or to take the first painful steps toward healing, to rebuild my identity from the ruins of our once perfect life. I knew that the public fallout of this scandal would be inevitable: whispers among family members, the cold judgment of friends, the inevitable side glances at gatherings, but I also understood that my own future depended on how I chose to move forward. I began to seek solace in small acts of rebellion against the despair that threatened to engulf me. I took long walks in the early morning mist, letting the cool air and the soft rustling of leaves remind me that life still continued outside the confines of my shattered world. I started reconnecting with friends I had long neglected, people who remembered me not as the husband of a deceitful woman but as someone of worth and strength. Their support, though tinged with pity and sorrow, offered me a lifeline, a reminder that I was not alone, that I could rebuild even when everything seemed lost. I also returned to my long-forgotten passion for writing. Every day, I dedicated time to penning my thoughts and feelings, a cathartic exercise that slowly transformed the raw anguish of betrayal into carefully woven words. I wrote poetry and essays about trust, deception, and the enduring struggle to find truth in a world of half-truths. With every word, I reclaimed a piece of myself, transforming my pain into art that was both beautiful and hauntingly real. My writing became a beacon of self-discovery, a means by which I could navigate the turbulent waters of my emotions. Therapy became an essential part of my journey. In the quiet, supportive sessions with my counselor, I learned that the process of healing was not about erasing the past but about accepting it as a part of my story. "Your pain is real," she would say gently, "but it does not have to define your future." Slowly, I began to see that forgiveness, though perhaps never complete, was a way to free myself from the relentless grip of anger. Forgiveness was not about condoning the betrayal, but about liberating my own heart so that I could move forward with dignity. I started to form a new vision for my life, a future not dictated by the betrayal I had endured but by the strength I had discovered in its wake. I began to set small, achievable goals for myself, whether it was learning a new skill, engaging in creative pursuits, or simply spending time with loved ones who offered genuine support. Every step, no matter how small, was a victory over the darkness that had once consumed me. I reminded myself that while the scars of betrayal might never fully fade, they could serve as reminders of my resilience and my capacity to rebuild. One particularly transformative afternoon, I attended a quiet art exhibition in a local gallery. Surrounded by paintings that captured the raw intensity of human emotion, I found solace in the idea that beauty can emerge from pain. One particular painting, a fractured mirror with shards that reflected a myriad of colors, spoke to me on a profound level. In that image, I saw the possibility of a self reassembled from the broken pieces of a once perfect life, a life that, though scarred, could be transformed into something even more genuine and vibrant. As I left the gallery, a newfound determination settled in my heart. I realized that the confrontation with Melissa, however devastating, was only the beginning of a long, arduous journey toward renewal. I resolved to continue on this path with cautious optimism, to embrace every day as a step toward reclaiming my identity and rediscovering the meaning of trust and love. Now, as I sit quietly in my study, the memory of that painful confrontation still fresh in my mind, I reflect on the journey from betrayal to healing. The road has been long and fraught with moments of raw, searing pain, yet I have come to understand that every scar, every tear, is a testament to my survival, a mark of the battles I have fought and the strength I have gathered. I know that the wounds may never fully close, but they will no longer define me. Instead, I choose to let them be symbols of a transformation, a rebirth that has been forged in the fires of heartbreak and tempered by the slow, steady light of truth. As the days turn into months, I continue to rebuild my life, piece by piece, moment by moment. I forge new connections, nurture the relationships that matter, and gradually, I begin to feel the stirrings of hope where once there was only despair. I have learned that true healing is not about erasing the past but about integrating it into a new narrative, one that is richer, more complex, and ultimately, more authentic. I now understand that while the perfect illusion of our marriage has been irrevocably shattered, the pain has also opened the door to self-discovery and renewal. Today, as I step forward into an uncertain future, I carry with me the painful lessons of betrayal and the quiet determination to build a life defined by truth and resilience. The journey ahead will undoubtedly be challenging, marked by lingering echoes of a love lost and the enduring scars of deception. Yet, I am no longer the man who lived in blissful ignorance. I am a man reborn from the ruins, a man who has faced the harshest truths and emerged, scarred but stronger, ready to forge a new path illuminated by hope and authenticity. This is my story, a story of betrayal that shattered a perfect illusion and a journey toward reclaiming the self that lay hidden beneath the ruins. And though the road to healing may be long and uncertain, I choose to walk it with the conviction that even in the darkest of times, the light of a new dawn is waiting to break through. Every step I take, every word I write, is a testament to the unyielding strength of the human spirit, a spirit that, no matter how deeply wounded, has the capacity to rise, rebuild, and ultimately, find hope in the promise of a brighter tomorrow.